Miss Murica?
I don't know what else to say but that my name is Kathy, and I am a junior, currently attending UMASS LOWELL. That's it.
Cool. So, I mean, obviously, me and you go back like a couple of years, but given that time from when I first met you to like now physically attending school during a pandemic, how do you feel about that drastic change?
So from then to now is basically what you're asking, right?
Yep.
So the changes, I think systematically, it's like it is what it is. It's trying to make it safer. I kind of didn't really fight the fact that it was that we had to play it safe and everyone's kind of like quarantined. I think it makes sense to do that. At first I think like it makes sense that everyone's freaking out, but like I want to go out and everything, but I'm like an ambivert, so I don't really hate having to not see people. I don't fight against that. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, the world needs healing, then I'm fine. But definitely like there are some changes that kind of like makes it difficult because, you know, most cases people attend to physical interaction to do like classes and everything. So once that was cut off, all the classes kind of buffered really badly, and when that transitions back to this year, when we start a new year, making everything virtual, everything's super fast. So that's what quarantine kind of did with school systems. And then I think that's the harder part on my end, but everything else seems fine and fair. Everyone just has to figure out how to make the world get better, but some people always test against it anyways, but you know, what are you gonna do?
That's fair. Well, I actually really appreciate that optimism and just the fact that you still have the courage to come out and not only attend school, but do it in a campus setting where you know it's like completely empty. The last time I came up here, Yugo was briefly like, not joking about it, but he's like, well now, like you guys have like the whole space to yourselves to really like figure out how you go about your daily routine versus having to acquiesce around a whole bunch of people that you share a space with. You still work here, right?
I work at UML for work study, yes, I still do, just differently.
So what's that like still being employed on a physical campus where you know there's nobody?
Definitely, I think it's really different now, just because it's quarantine. They gotta lay off some people, and some jobs are basically taken away because of the purpose that it's more hand-to-hand, like people-to-people contact, and it's very close. So before I worked at AV cage, which is the audio visual cage where I help students rent out different materials like cameras and everything, right?
Yeah.
So that is now closed out. I don't work there. I have a different position of which I do floor sweep-throughs where I check in every single room that I have access to see like, okay, are students actually keeping their 6 feet distance? Are they having their mask on? Are they staying safe? Are they in their own boundaries? Are they talking to each other from a safe distance? So I kind of my position is to nag. And most likely my case in time is that when I'm there, there's really no one. It's only me and a few couple of people, and we stay a great distance, and everyone just does their own thing. So.
Yeah. Wow, that's actually really solid and kind of crazy because that means essentially for that floor you pretty much took over security.
Yeah, but then they do like another sweep through in case anyone stays behind, because the school used to do like a 24-hour access, right?
Yeah.
Now they don't. It closes at 9:30. And then my shift on Friday also closed out because we have a long weekend right now. So they closed the building at 1 p.m. so no one could get in. And on the weekend it's not even open.
Wait, so what's this holiday or the long weekend occasion?
Okay, well, we know it as Columbus Day.
Oh, Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yes, sir!
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's closed out for the long weekend, Monday's off as well, therefore they also took off Friday as like, you know, we're going to close this building early, no one's getting access in it, which is like, okay, I guess fair if you want people to like just go home, but what if students need their studio, you know, and they didn't know until last minute.
That's fair. So outside of like the campus life experience at UML, like how do you feel as just an individual American, like witnessing all this stuff go from, I guess, regular routine American capitalism to pandemic frenzy and like seeing seeing all the protests and things about Black Lives Matter or all the craziness of the presidency, like how are you reacting to it as a college student knowing that elections are coming up in November?
That's a lot that you ripped through.
I know, right? I mean,
it's a lot that you ripped through.
Because it's all in the context of like, okay, none of that would have happened if COVID-19 didn't spread. Let's be real.
Right. So I think ripping through it is like, I think how I would start it is like January. It's like, okay, people just knew Corona and they just make big communities out of it. It ain't real. It's not gonna really happen. Then it progresses, and then March happens, lockdown, everything. Everyone's making a big deal, and then all this, the whole freak out of everything and anything. Like one cough, you're gone. Oh, you see a bat as a picture, they're just gonna make a meme out of it. Either all these memes go from serious or even more dank, and then everyone's freaking out, and there's memes all about like toilet papers going missing. Flash forward, now it's June, Black Lives Matter is like the biggest movement, and it's like crazy because it's like silenced at the same time, but it's still moving. But it's like, it was there as like a hype moment, and it shouldn't even have to be a hype moment. So that was like something that everyone is still like fighting for. Definitely on social media, people are still following up with Black Lives Matter. I can see that through like the handful of people that I have on my social media, and that's really great. Some of us, so I'm in the club, we also do promotion on those as well to like make sure you have some guidelines on how to stay safe and all that. And then, now I'm of age to vote, and the most recent news is, the debates. Very, 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 how do I say this? I'll just spit it as it is. Like, there's no way to make it professional. Like, at this point, you just gotta say what's on your mind, and hopefully I, don't get attacked for it. Maybe 10 years later, but we'll see 10 years down.
Now, speak your mind, this is what this whole experience is, so people can get, the raw reality, where you're at.
Presidential debate, everyone sees that as a joke. The whole world sees the US as a joke. They're like, wow, we thought you were a circus, but this is just getting sad. I think that's the whole thing right now. Everyone's just like, wow, they have that as a president. And we're like, yeah, we do. And then presidential debate came up, we're watching it, everyone's memeing it out at the same time because they absolutely don't answer the question anyways, or they go around and they just kind of it was just really messy. So presidential debate was really something that everyone's just
are you surprised though?
No, I'm not surprised.
That's the weird thing I feel like.
I'm not surprised, and it's the surprising part about it is because they both are such bad candidates, but then you hear about parents and other people asking oh, who are you gonna vote for, or where are you gonna vote at? And the same thing came up with my parents, and they were like, oh, who are you voting for? And I'm like, who are you voting for? And they're like, and I'm like, and when they're a person coming from they had to migrate because of war, they're like, oh, well, this person has a better idea of how to handle it. I was like, they didn't even follow through with it. So what makes you think that they're going to actually accomplish what you wish to ask me? He doesn't even give a damn about your people, and that's us. So they're like, the other dude looks like a creep, I'm not voting for him. I'm like, you're really voting on looks right now? You're really stupid. And some people's debate on who to vote for is so crazy. And you're like, you really want to live 4 years with this guy again, or 4 years with that one? And it's such a big thing. And it doesn't help the fact that the debate didn't really rip into what they're capable of or what they're trying to do. They're more ripping at each other rather than to actually prove their potential. Then again, for the vice presidential debate, that's something more conversational. You can just think about it and go, okay, yeah, there were some points that they brought up that we can talk about. Nonetheless, it's still a mess, but more serious of a talk than presidential debate. And so as a student right now, having to know that I gotta vote, which I already have registered.
You don't even have to tell them who you're gonna vote for.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah.
But like, just know like both options are like, they don't even send themselves off as like, oh, I can take this position and you can trust me. Everyone's just kind of pointing fingers at each other right now.
We can't do lesser of two evils anymore because everyone's fucking like rap sheet.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially with like minorities, I'm just like, damn, like our parents and our parents have fucking trusted y'all.
Right.
What?
And it's crazy. And it's funny because they're like, oh, don't like, you better not skip your vote. And it's so serious because in comparison to every other year, people would be like, oh, don't forget to vote, don't forget to vote. And this year's like, you gotta damn vote. Like you see this, right? And there's so much like media and advertisement and like, get your fucking votes and you know you gotta do this. And the mail-in ballots, that's like another thing that people are like, what the hell do you just do? You just cut off like the fundings for like USPS and everything? Like what's going on?
Right, so like.
So that's everyone's kind of mindset right now, hearing about it, like talking to like my team, they're like, oh, even then like for us clubs, we also like register. You better register. During class, there's someone that comes in,
awesome.
Register. And we're like, we all registered. Send it along the way.
Okay, so like, given everything that's kind of transpired over these past few months and just 2020 being a fucking shit year.
Yeah.
Like the absolute, like, a way more toxic shit than what I literally just dumped in that bathroom.
Yeah.
Times 100. I know, TMI. But,
wait, this is mine. The tater tots.
those fucking tots.
This is yours.
Oh, that's so weird. And then this must be
The waffle fries.
oh, thank you. Dank ass wings. Being in a place of comfort, given everything, like, what keeps you going, like, in this type of environment?
What keeps me going? I think, well, I had like a little small podcast last night, but I basically covered the same thing. It's like, in general, for me to keep it going, it's like, you gotta accept what it is sometimes, and if it's out of your control, like, you just gotta figure out your way with it or without it or working, like, you can't just like avoid it. It's gonna exist. If it exists, it exists. You have it there and then you continue with your own life based on how effective it is in your life. Some people prioritize it differently too. And so for me, I prioritize, you know, this is election, we don't know what's gonna happen until it does happen and we get the results. Am I gonna panic about it until then? Up until then, well, there's nothing much that we just gotta hope that everyone's voting and that I'm there. And for me, my goal and focus is to get my degree, get my education, strive, thrive, and provide. So that's what it is for me. That's how I'm going about it. And then people, you know, like, I don't have to socialize with people, but like, because I'm working, sometimes I still run into people, and that's chill too. Like, I'm not talking to myself all the time. I'm not talking to myself, period. And even if I do, it's just because I'm doing homework and I'm like talking about equations in my head to myself. But otherwise, that keeps me sane too. Everything's just, you know, you gotta accept the world just needs healing, and then you gotta be there for each other. You can't just head at each other all the time.
Yeah, just keep it regular.
Yep.
Damn, I really appreciate that. I mean, even though, like, I deleted Snapchat not too long ago, like, we still keep in touch.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
you know, we chop it up. By the way, like, during, like, these whole past few months prior to me getting rid of that app, like, I enjoyed all of, like, the daily videos of you and your sister just, like, around and then constantly, like, picking on each other and just being on that typical sibling relationship. I'm like, those are things that, like, I cherish about, like, my younger experience with my siblings.
Yes.
Cause, like, okay, I'm coming up on 24 and next spring / this coming spring. And I'm the youngest of my immediate family, so it's like not even the same. Like, I can try and love my older siblings, but everybody's just so much in grind mode. being back at my folks' house, like my older brother's on the other end of the wall, and now we're just so deeply invested into our art craft, we'll like bug each other about that, but it's more like running ideas through, but like, you just don't get that same sibling energy.
No, it's because you're like constantly grinding on like just getting things done, so it makes sense, but you know, find time to have fun and make jokes every now and then.
You're not in your 20s yet, are you?
I am 20, jokes on you!
Yeah, that fucking ominous of it is like, alright, now that you're in your 20s, like, don't stress out about it as much as people
stress about adulting, bro?
Yeah, like don't, like adulting is always going to be stressful, but in that same time, it's like your first decade as an adult, but you still feel like a fucking kid compared to a majority of other adults, unless you have the privilege to already have certain things lined up, like, you know, having a car at your disposal that's paid for, insurance, this, that, and the third, and fucking being able to go to different places to vacation, you know, all the courtesy.
No, gotta get that bread, gotta get the notes and earn those.
Yeah. I mean, even with people who have that kind of privilege, like, you know, everybody has their own struggle, everybody has their own things that they're accounting for.
Yeah.
So.
But how I think about it is like, you know, they always like, age is but a number, but this is the thing I'm trying to go for is that, you know, people associate adult to being mature, but maturity has no age. It's a flick of a switch in your head. You can be mature whenever, and you can be immature whenever, and it doesn't matter what age. And at the same time, being an adult is stressful, but at every age there is a different kind of stress. Even little kids stress at school. You're probably thinking like, what the hell are they stressing about? There's social dynamics. They gotta bully each other to get popularity. In elementary school, it's always been like that. They think that power is within money, and so if they don't have money, then they talk about the numbers of friends, right? That's their power.
I'm not guiding these kids right, man. They're picking up all that bullshit fucking too fast. Like,
I know. So
that's just crazy.
That's their stress too. Like, stress is always gonna come in different forms by different like values of age and time and everything. But adulting is definitely something that people like kind of get hit by the train. They're like, I don't even know how to count money anymore. Like, what? And they're skipping monies and everything, and they're like forgetting how to even adult or even live as a person. So it's crazy, but you know, you find ways to conquer it, and that's one way of doing it. You just gotta live with it, learn, fall a few times, and get with it.
So, okay, between me and you, you're also a child of immigrant parents, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, have your parents ever walked you through credit or?
They would only they would take me to the bank, and then the banker would just tell me. So
how
it works, especially with like different companies they work kind of differently with all these.
Have your parents ever walked you through like that transition from getting pediatric care with to like getting yourself like a primary care doctor or any of that stuff involving health insurance?
No.
Get on that. That's one thing I'm gonna tell you, because right now,
isn't like 26 when you have to you split from like the family plan or whatever? Is that what we're going?
Yeah, but in that same sense, I'm 23 now, and I already had to have made that transition from going to a pediatrician and like those types of people to getting on like primary care. Like I can still be under my parents' insurance for another like 3 years, but like I just say that now because if you don't as you know, with parents that are immigrants here, and even if they are like well established, a lot of times because if they don't have too much that they've inherited in making that transition, they're so caught up in the grind that they don't have time to walk their kids through that. So I just want to advise that to you as a fellow American, and to anybody who ends up watching this, who's in that same predicament. Like, just get on that as soon as possible, because when you get that, not phone call, but when you try and make that next appointment, like, oh, I need to go get like my teeth checked, for like a yearly cleaning, or if you need to go get your eyes checked, and you call your pediatrician at like 23 or 24, they're gonna be like, Sorry, honey, you're like a little bit too old to be coming here. Have you tried, finding like a primary care doctor, this and the third, and that happened to me like a month ago. And then from that point, I was already like trying to do all that stuff, but I just wasn't proactive about it. And then another thing is, are you under your parents' health insurance? Or do you just not deal with health insurance at all?
I think I am because like, yeah, it would be like my mom or my dad they're like the primary person, but I'm like underneath it. So whenever I go to like the clinic, they'll be like, who's in charge? I'll be like, oh, this is my policy, my mom or dad is in charge. And they're like, what's their name? And then they're like, oh yeah, one of your parents are. They never like clarify who. And I would ask my mom, and sometimes I would forget.
So what you should do is, one of these days, like, you should call that, general, health insurance company, they've got a whole branch, and whoever's like working at the desk, just ask them those questions like, hey, where can I get started for getting a primary care doctor? Could you refer me to these resources to get like, you know, like a doctor finder?
Right.
Like, I just want to tell you those things now, because like, the sooner you get on it, the more you'll be relieved and you won't feel like you're losing time, like dealing with extra stuff. I mean, it's so crazy that like, even though I technically was attending school during the pandemic, like I was graduating like this past May, so only had like a month or so left of this. But then the second I got out, it was like, all right, now I have to like fully get on that adulting and shit like that. And it has been quite the journey. Like I didn't even think I'd be doing like this type of documentary type experience. But so far, like it's really, I mean, it's fucked up the nature and the premise of the circumstances, but it's still been a blessing to be able to interact with the people that I have, yourself included. Now, what things have been on your mind as far as the past month?
The past month? I think it's more about like work and like, not work, but like school work. Everyone has been slammed with it. Everyone's like, I just finished one and I got 5 more to go. And then same like with me, it's like, I just finished one and I'm like, I got shit ton more to go. Or it'll be like, oh, I just did this. Oh, I just passed this exam. Or, oh, I didn't do that. Or it would be like, it would be so many different cases. Or like, oh, I'm behind on lectures. So pretty much, I'm kind of like, yo, what part do I gotta do? And I'm sitting there opening my agenda every single day. I'm like, okay, we gotta grind this out, and I gotta schedule everything by the calendar. Like, you gotta do this, and that's like school, you know. And on top of that, there's other extracurricular stuff too, and like, you know, social stuff. And so I'm like cutting away from like the social stuff. Like me and my homeboys who were like talking on Discord, and they were like, "You want to play a game?" I'm like, "No," and so.
Yeah, I mean, the sacrifices of like an undergrad experience, especially when you're getting towards the end, because you're a senior now, right?
No, junior.
Oh, junior. Okay, but you're still in the general like upperclassmen sphere, so.
Yep.
Like, it's weird, like looking back on it, even outside of the context of pandemic, like that's when things really started to like pile on, and if you don't have your things lined up with like how you're gonna attack your classes, it's easy to be like, oh my god, this is too stressful, drop a class. And then as you know, like for every class that you drop, that's credit.
I'll take those COVID precautions. And that's how you do it. Bon appetit!
Yeah, so money, loans. Yeah, that's school for you. I mean, it's not really school, it's college, you know. It kind of just, you got money handed over. And the fact that UML is like a public, they also have some things that doesn't benefit some students. Like, I have a brother that also goes to like college at the same time as me. Some schools, they have this thing where like siblings, they would like, if they enter college at the same time and your parents can't help pay it off, and there's only one parent that is actually helping paying it, then they would have a program where they're like, okay, we'll deduct how much you gotta pay, right? I asked UMASS, and they're like, we don't do that here. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, yo, my mom's like breadwinning this shit just to like get us still going to school.
Yeah, like you both are dependents. It's not like your brother was paying out of pocket and taking care of over 50% of his expenses, right?
No, like pretty much like if anything we went to like, I grind out all my work study money to like pay it off, and my mom, she didn't know about it. She's like, oh, why is the money getting later? And I was just like, I'm grinding all this money to actually pay it off so you don't gotta stress about it.
Oh, and you've been doing it independently, you didn't go down as a dependent?
No, it was basically a split, but at a point where like the bills, you know, like you and they always like adjust things really weird timing.
Yeah.
And so at one point it had this price, and then later on it increased, and I was like, how do I even break it to my mom that she is actually like 2,000 short? So I had to like work my ass off. Every single penny went into like school, and that was out of my wallet. She's like, oh, so we basically finished paying. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like pulling out money from my own pocket. And I'm like, yeah.
And you're still loaning it up?
Yeah, that too, so.
That's what See, for me, the way I try to compensate for it was paying for the bulk of my supplies and shit. So like my pops don't have to.
Yeah, no, I don't let my parents like pay for anything that I want or like I need to earn, because it's like, if it's my textbook, I'm gonna pay for my textbook. If it's something that I'm like trying to like get like clothes or like a whole wardrobe, like a whole change of that, then it's like, why do you need to pay for that? That's something that I want.
Exactly, like that's the start. That's how I feel like for people who, again, who don't have like that already provided benefit of just excess money like lying around where they can take. Doesn't mean like my pops won't like occasionally throw like a $20 like here and there, but that's something I like wouldn't ask for. Matter of fact, it would only be if I'm like dead ass ran short of all like my savings and my other versions of grind, as you can remember.
Yep.
When that hit, we were like running low, just like, yo, fucking, I'll get you back. And then there's to get him back, but he's like helping out with a little stuff with laundry. The fact that they make y'all pay to do laundry up here, on top of everything else, I'm like, how much more?
Different suites have different things. So like the suite down the street, I think it's Riverhawk Village. I think they're like the studios. They have studios where they don't even need to pay for laundry.
Oh yeah, it's just the machines like.
The machines are already there. But it's also super expensive to live there, so I guess it's just kind of like
that's how they
blend it in, blend it in. And so that's them. And then for me, I'm just kind of like spare change. Putting it in.
Has that time Paul food gotten any better?
Oh, I still haven't gotten it. I got an email that they hit me up. They're like, you know, you're at the school and you didn't eat any of like the dining hall food. We can tell by your account you haven't been tapping. You know, swing by. Like, you're wasting money. I'm like, I didn't even ask for this dinner plan. You forcefully had me on gold or platinum. So you kind of suck. And you fucked up the year before. So if I'm eating worms, then I'm eating fucking worms, and your fucking money's gonna be gone.
Well, you can't choose to do the 100 meals, you can't do silver anymore?
Nope, because if you're gonna be on campus, there's already so little numbers of people that are going to be on campus, so that deducts the money for like them to even exist. So they have everyone pay on gold so that it compensates for the numbers of students that are on campus.
Okay.
Right?
But is the gold at least what the silver prices were? Or is it just, what? It's the same.
It can't be the same.
Thieves.
I know.
Wow.
Thieves.
I'm broke, I'm lying too. Fuck.
Yeah.
Ooh, the finesse is real at this age. I mean, at least we paid in state, and that's still fucking a lot.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
No, but it's easy pay. Like, there's only like a handful of like how much I gotta pay left, and it's like almost like 100 something. Because I do a monthly payment, and they like split it. They also do this weird thing where they like, before you can choose a day to like pay it, but now they automatically like, you just like, when you monthly pay it, you can just put in this certain amount, but now they forcefully put everyone's account where like they just take it directly from your bank. And I'm like, that's really bad, because what if like you don't grind enough for that day or buy that
If I could just put you in the red and then you get overdrive.
Yeah. And so I was like, fuck. And so some days like you can pay like beforehand, and so like I'm like, okay, mom, we gotta pay this day. She's like, oh, I'll pay it the other day. And I was like,
Yeah, that's like what, close to 3,000?
yeah, well this semester is actually pretty light because, you know, COVID.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but they break it down month to month, so it's like a couple hundred a month or something.
Well the total was like 3,000, 2,000, and then I paid like majority of it. And then my mom, she's like, here's the money. I was like, I'll take it back. And so she doesn't know, but I transferred it back to my dad's bank. So I just paid it out of my pocket. And it was easy, like, it wasn't too bad.
Oh. Oof. Shit. Commend you, sister. Now, okay, with all those things kind of talked about in terms of your college experience, if there was one or two things that you'd want to tell your fellow students over at UMASS, LOWELL, or just college students in general in America having to deal with these pandemic conditions, like, what would you tell them as support?
Self-care is really important. And self-care, like, you hear it all the time, but you probably should really ask, do you really care about yourself before you actually practice self-care? Some people, they don't really do that, and so they go bonkers. And it's crazy because you see different bodies where like extroverted, introverted, introverted bodies are kind of like, how do I even deal with this whole thing? They don't know ways to actually self-care, and it comes in many different forms. And in which I shouldn't be saying it like this, but procrastination is also a type of self-healing and self-care. I'm not saying you should do it all the time, like do it in moderation, because do it in moderation, but also productively for yourself, that you actually like feel good and that you feel better in self-care during pandemics. Two, I think you should look at it on a good side, because you know things are really virtual. It is not of the norm or tradition, but if you can conquer virtual stuff, then you basically can take on the world physically and virtually. So I don't feel like people should shy away from the struggle, but they should learn with it and build with it and figure out how to go about it.
Pace yourself. I like that. Yeah. Very good. I'm actually really glad you said like some degree of procrastination is self-care, because okay, now with everything transitioned at home, like my pop still keeps his job, but now he does a lot of the testing for his work and all that stuff from home, and this dude is literally up more than 12 hours a day, and I literally am like, Dad, did they increase your salary? Oh no, but you know, like I could potentially get that bonus. I'm just like,
What bonus? They're not going to. They're not going to.
Stop like killing yourself to do all this other stuff when your other coworkers like left and right are taking vacations, taking time to take care of their kids, your bosses, like, because one thing I feel like I've learned, even from working those part-time jobs that I have, is it's okay to be a hard worker, but the second you're die hard about work, they'll squeeze you like a lemon, because they're like, bet he doesn't care, he'll just shift it all onto you. And then this dude will always fall asleep on the couch and like rest with his eyes closed. But I'm like, you worked hard so you can have a house, and you're not even gonna use
the house.
A bed. Yeah. So just like little stuff like that kind of gets to be, and I'm just like, this is why I could never see myself as a corporate person. Even if I tried to learn all that shit, it's just certain things, like I can do basic algebra, like some trade. I mean, if I really sat and worked at it, like I definitely could. But what are they gonna direct me to do with all that knowledge? Sit at a desk, do that same shit.
Yeah.
You're fucking.
I feel like
work my life away.
Yeah. Become your own boss, become your own man, but that involves like really great creativity.
Yeah, I'm trying. Like, I'm at this point right now where I feel like this particular video project versus all the other ones is it's definitely rooted in not only a more serious cause, I guess. Like the other videos I made were fairly experimental in nature, and they were just dealing with more of like everyday creative concepts and just kind of taking like my personal interaction with objects and like building ideas. But it's more abstract versus this. I'm actually using the medium of like videography as a way to kind of have these conversations and bridge that gap between artists and like everyday person. And I feel like it allows me to be an everyday person without having to stress so much like the formalities of
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, say what's up. Pandemic movie time.
Pandemic movie.
Sometimes just gotta make a way to enjoy life. COVID American.